Concluding lecture of this session of this course on 9 dimensions of the lockdown experience. I don't think he needs any introduction. Guruji is the chairman of the Sambodh Society Inc. in the USA and the Sambodh Foundation Delhi. He is also the chairman of a research foundation called Management and Leadership Studies. He is a philosopher, and he teaches Advaita Vedanta, meditation, and also how to live with happiness and creative excellence. So once again, pranam to you, Swamiji, for being here. And I think, Niharika, we can start the lecture
yes,
now, or should we?
Ma'am, people have joined in. I think we can start. I'll let people in whenever they join. Swamiji, do we have your permission to start the lecture?
So can I start now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me and allowing me to share some of my thoughts about your topic, which is self in the virus times, coronavirus times, or lockdown times. And I am going to present the Advaitic standpoint. You heard many standpoints, many kind of self-experiences, like the narcissistic self, alienated self, distant self, masked self. Then a self from the standpoint of postmodernism, Ayurvedic self. So there are many selves, it seems. And maybe the real self is a compendium of all this, or maybe one of this. The rest are all just perceptions. There is a real self and your take of the self, depending upon your thoughts or feelings or experiences. So we all have our own take of the self. And there could be some real self also, without which you cannot take these snapshots. So I'm going to reflect upon all this. So from the Vedantic standpoint, or Advaita Vedanta standpoint, you can say there are 3 selves. You can reduce all this into 3 selves or 5 selves. And 3 selves itself, there are 2 categories. Or you can say there are 2 selves. Let us talk about the 3 selves first, which you and I may speak the same language. The 3 selves are the biological self, the social self, and the spiritual self. The biological self, you all know. The long history of evolution, maybe billions of years of evolution. And finally, you have this brain, and the brain processes, and the experience of being conscious of things. So the biological self. And you are a product of billions of years of evolution. And evolution itself is a result of the Big Bang, which is the physical foundation of the biological evolution. And then you have the social self, which has a history of 15,000 years. Language, community, production, productive activities, and all that. That is the biology, the social self. So apart from the biological and the social self, from the Vedantic standpoint, you have a spiritual self. I'm not talking about the evening spirituality, bottled spirituality. I'm talking about the embodied spirituality, the spiritual self. Why do you call it the spiritual self? Because this self cannot be objectified. You cannot put the self in a disc or and then say, okay, take a look at that. That's not possible. You cannot objectify the spiritual self. It has to be deeply experienced. It is a private self. You alone have access to that. Nobody else can have access to that. Nobody can take a picture of that. Nobody can see that through the periscope or a telescope or a stethoscope. It doesn't come under any scope. It is beyond all these scopes. But at the same time, you can deeply experience that. And not only that you can deeply experience, you can invoke that in your interactive life as health, happiness, and love. It can be invoked like that. And love also is very subtle. I cannot take a picture of love. I cannot take a picture of happiness. I cannot take a picture of health. Health is a deep, abiding feeling that we have. So, the Vedanta talks about, or Advaita talks about the spiritual self, which is not accessible to objectification. That is why I call it the spirit. Spirit means it is subtle, it cannot be objectified, it cannot be cut and recycled. Nothing is possible. It is your deepermost private experience. But it is experienced as, it can be invoked as I told you, happiness, love, and health. So I will be emphasizing the spiritual self. And we are talking about the locked down experience, being locked down, isn't it? That is the whole provocation for the lecture series. Your experience of being locked down. And when I think of being locked down, I can think in many dimensions. I feel I am locked down in this biosphere. This biosphere, which has got only, it's like a bubble, which has got only 3 miles radius. The 3-mile radius biosphere. And I feel I am locked down in that. My movement is restricted. I cannot break out of that. If I break out of that, I am finished, isn't it? I can go maybe 3 miles under the water in the ocean. I can go up 3 miles. Beyond that, if I go, I am finished. So as a philosopher, I feel locked down in this biosphere. I also feel locked down in my room, especially because of the scare of the coronavirus. I feel locked down in my room, in my ashram. I'm not able to go out. I cannot walk. I am used to walking 1.5 hours every day. And I cannot walk now. I feel locked down. I also feel locked down in my body. My body, which is made up of bones and flesh and skin, hair, filled with the feces and urine. I feel I am locked down in this. Though I am trying to paint it and all that, make it look so beautiful. Actually, the reality is that it is so ugly. It is so suffocating. I also feel locked down because I am not able to fly like the birds. I'm not able to swim like a fish. I'm not able to smell like a dog. I feel locked down. I feel locked down in this body. I feel locked down in this biosphere. I feel locked down in my concept, my ideas, my feelings, When I am depressed, I feel locked down. When I am confused, I feel locked down. I'm not able to have a clear thought. So many thoughts from all directions and upsets me. And I feel locked down. I feel locked down as a Hindu because I am conditioned by those experiences and feelings. When I see a Muslim or a Christian and I listen to them, wow, what a wonderful philosophy or a wonderful story. I feel locked down as a Hindu. I feel locked down as an Indian because now I am very angry with the Chinese. They killed 20 of our soldiers. I want to, my blood is boiling and I want to take revenge. If possible, I would have killed 20 of them. And I feel locked down as an Indian, as a Hindu, as a man, I feel locked down. I don't have the feeling of a woman and I feel deprived. So you can go on and on and on looking at this or explaining this lockdown experience. We all feel locked down. It is not a new feeling or something. If you think, but we don't think much. Because for us it is chalta hai, sab chalta hai, everything, somehow or other we have to manage. But if you sit down and think, there is plenty to talk about, plenty to worry, plenty to discuss. We all have a continuous, the whole life is a continuous locked down experience. Because I feel I am trapped. I'm not able to get out. That is how we start thinking what it is all about. What am I? Where did I come from? Where do I go? What is this world? Some fundamental questions. Some fundamental questions are to be asked to make meaning in life. Otherwise, life is meaningless, or we borrow somebody's meaning. You give some meaning to me, I give some meaning to you, and we believe in those stories. So stories keep changing. Few years I believe in this story, then I change the story, then I believe in some other story, then I become a guru and make up my own stories. And I get some followers, and I live in that little bubble, and I think I have conquered the whole world. So this way, we create our own prisons, our own snares. And how do I get out of all this? So Vedanta, that is where Vedanta comes into the picture, or Advaita comes into the picture. Advaita is the basic category of reflection or thinking. The basic categories, because thinking is a categorical thinking. We need certain definitions and words and categories. Some basic assumptions are necessary. Those assumptions themselves can become traps. So the basic assumption or categories, Vedantic thinking, Advaita thinking is Drik and Drishyam. Drik and Drishyam. These are the basic. Not good and bad. Not good and bad. Not cause and effect. Not substratum and substratum. Not part and whole. That's not the basic category. These are all verbal and intellectual. The fundamental categories are Drik and Drishyam, seer and the scenery, or subject and the object, or consciousness, or what we are conscious of. Consciousness and the content of consciousness, or what we are conscious of. This is the basic category of reflection. I don't even want to use the word thinking, because thinking is a little little material or little substandard. The real categories are, or reflection is, seer and scenery. So our basic experience of being a self, because we say myself, yourself, themselves, itself, herself, himself. In all this there is self is involved. So in experience, the basic category is myself, I experience the world. You can give any amount of, any number of physical and biological explanations for this, but the fact remains, I experience the world. And I am a conscious entity. I consciously experience the world. And I said, these are my experiences. I experience my body, I experience the world around me, I experience my feelings, I experience my thoughts, I experience my ignorance, I experience my knowledge, I experience my pain, I experience my pleasures. All these experiences put together can be understood as the objective world, the world of experiences. It includes your body, it includes the outside sensations, it includes your thoughts, your feelings, your knowledge, your ignorance. Everything is included, pain, suffering, everything. So I am the one who is experiencing all this. And I experience even time and space. The time-space continuum and the disturbance in the time-space continuum, which are objects, bounded objects. From the Vedantic Advaita standpoint, the objects, bounded objects, which are called the prior and the posterior and the mutual non-existence. Every object has got a prior non-existence, posterior non-existence, and mutual non-existence, isn't it? Take a chair. There was a time when it was not. There will be a time when it shall not be. And the chair is not a table. This is called prior, posterior, and mutual non-existence. Every object is subjected to this definition. So the world of bounded objects is nothing but a disturbance in the time-space sphere or time-space continuum, according to Vedanta. And even the time-space continuum in which these objects appear and disappear as disturbances, they themselves are disturbances in consciousness, a self-generated vibration in consciousness. And that consciousness I am. So when you use the word I, and we all are using the word I, which is a constant experience you have. I got up in the morning, I had a bath, I had my breakfast, I jumped into my car, I reached my office, and I slept there for some time. Then I did some work, I came back, isn't it? And I had a shower, I had my dinner, and I watched the TV for some time. Then I went to bed. See, in all this, what is constant is I experience, which is constant, which doesn't change. But what I experience continuously changes. So this is the I we are talking about. The I experience refers to an existence, refers to reality, other than the body, other than the mind, other than thinking, other than the world, other than time, and other than space. Because I am conscious of time, space. I'm conscious of how long I sat here. I'm conscious of where I am sitting. And there is an experience for me when I go to deep sleep. Every day, we all go to deep sleep. In that deep sleep, I don't experience time, space. In that deep sleep consciousness, I don't experience time, space. isn't it? And when I wake up, time-space also manifests. Maybe Immanuel Kant was right that time-space is a construct of the mind to process experiences. It is in consciousness. It is not outside of consciousness. So whenever you use the word I, that experience of I can falsely refer to the body in an unanalyzed and non-meditative situation. It can refer to the body. You can also refer to your children. Your children become I. Because something happens to them, you suffer, isn't it? My child is me. My wife is me. My husband is me. My office is me. My position is me. But these are all changing references. Doesn't have any constancy about that. You can say your house is you. When you buy a new car, you are so much identified with the car, isn't it? Somebody scratching on the car, you say, please don't scratch on my car, you can scratch on me. And when the car becomes old, you don't care. Then your identification is gone. Similarly, your body. When you're young and bouncing and swashbuckling young man, then you are so much identified with the body. You look into the mirror half an hour every day, you flex your muscles or smile and all that. And when you become old, you don't want to look into the mirror. You don't want to look into the mirror. A streak of gray hair, you don't want to look into the mirror. So what happened to you now? I have an identification with the body. This is not me. That body was me, not this body. The body also constantly changes. Your identification change. Similarly, your children, when they are, tiny little tots, then bundle of bliss, you want to grab them and kiss them and all that. My child, when he grows up as a terrible teenager, you denounce him, isn't it? I don't want to even talk to him. I don't want even his shadow fall on me. You have nothing to do with that person. What happened to your identification? What happened to you? This is not me. I suspect his province. Where is he? I don't know whether he is my child or not. So this way, your identification keep on changing. But there is one identity which you never change. That is the I. And the true meaning of that I is none of this. Is not the world outside. Is not your body. Is not your position. Is not your relations. Is not your feeling, because feeling also can be objectified, isn't it? Today you are very happy. Tomorrow you are very unhappy. Today you are miserable. Yesterday you are ecstatic. So then, what are they? These are constantly changing appearances. They have no reality by themselves. Other than me, I give reality to them. I experience them. It is my memory. It is in my brain, all this. So if I am not there, then the carpet is pulled from under the bottom of all those things. It is me who is the ground of all these experiences. So from this, the Advaita standpoint is, Advaita philosophy says, the consciousness is the ground of. You may disagree with me. You may say, no, consciousness is a byproduct of brain processes. So there is some reality in that too. That consciousness is a byproduct of millions of billions of years of evolution. And finally, this 1.5 kilogram of gray matter, and there's a synaptical connections and trillions of them. And then as a result of that, the complex process, you have this thing called consciousness. But one consciousness comes, then the entire world is in consciousness. So it's a mystery. We don't know what is the ground of what. It seems that they're entangled in a very intricate way. But the Vedantic standpoint is consciousness is the ground. Matter is a manifestation of consciousness. It's an appearance of consciousness. It's a play act of consciousness. It's a pretense of consciousness. Matter. That's why someone said, what is matter? Matter is that which doesn't matter. It's a beautiful definition of matter. And even modern science talk that, you keep on digging matter, digging. Finally, what is matter? Matter is nothing but a field of infinite potentialities. It can appear this way or that way or any which way. It all depends upon how you look at it, how you interpret it, what language you use. It is depending upon your, matter is only a convention or a convenience. It doesn't have any other meaning at all. You can describe it in any which way. You can create stories about that. So what really matters is that consciousness is what matters. It gives reality to things. So from the Advaita standpoint, matter and mind, both. Because mind is subtle matter. Matter is gross mind. So they put together mind and matter. So this mind and matter phenomenon is an appearance, a pretense, a play act of consciousness. And the consciousness is beyond time space, beyond the bounded objects. Desha kala vastu avacheda shunyam, he says. It is not conditioned by any of those things. This is the true meaning of your I. When you say I in a contemplative state, this is where you go. This is what you experience, for which you need some reflectivity, not reaction, some contemplation, an ability to relax a little bit, an ability to ask fundamental questions, not flow with the tide, an ability to swim upstream, not downstream all the time. So if you can develop some reflectivity, a contemplative state, then we will be able to reach this level of consciousness, awareness. So we have to develop this awareness. And when you develop this awareness, you are not excluding anything, you're only including and deepening yourself. The deeper you go, the more inclusive you become. The shallow you are, the more exclusive you become. That's why you will be able to invoke this awareness as love. And love means an inclusive state of mind. Hate means you exclude things. And love is health. When you are healthy, you include everybody, isn't it? When you are unhealthy, then you don't want to see anybody. Leave me alone. Whether you're mentally unhealthy or physically unhealthy or socially unhealthy, you want to be left alone. So when you go deeper into this state of consciousness, where you are beyond the time space, and whenever you are in a happy state, you are beyond the time space, isn't it? Whenever you are happy, you don't feel time. When you watch your favorite serial on the TV, do you experience time? No. No. You don't experience time. When we are doing our homework, what happens? Time never moves, isn't it? 1 minute feels like 1 hour. But if you are talking with a person whom you like, then time just moves. So happiness is a state where there is no time, space simply is liquidated, disappears. And hence the Advaita masters say, Since your real the consciousness is beyond the time space, and that is your real nature, your nature is happiness also. That's why I said blissful self. Myself is really blissful. When I am with myself, I am very happy. In deep sleep, I am very happy. So consciousness, happiness, and health go together. And love. So I would put all of them together. They are the same thing. They are not different things. If you are healthy, you are happy. If you are happy, you are loving. Loving means you are all embracing. And in that state, you are abiding in your true nature. And in Vedanta, we call it samadhi. In Ayurveda, they call it swastada. In Ayurveda, you heard of the lecture yesterday, isn't it? Ayurvedic lecture. The Ayurvedic self. What is the Ayurvedic self? Ayurveda says that when you abide in your consciousness as your real nature, relax, then you are healthy. Swasmin staha swastaha tasya bhavam swastin. One who abides, you scholars must learn some Sanskrit because that's your heritage. We all know everything about Greek philosophy. What about Indian philosophy? You're totally illiterate of Indian philosophy, and you say you're a very illiterate person. It is very important that we have to root, we have to trace back into our own civilization, our own culture, our own tradition, our own language. Of course, Greek is great. That philosophy is great. Nothing wrong with that. But your genes are made up of Indian philosophy. And we need a confluence of these philosophies. Greek, Chinese, Indian, Islamic, African. Because these all are our heritage. So when you create a new man, the new individual, the new man, new woman, or new person, must be a confluence of all these streams. If you simply focus on Greek philosophy, you are a half-educated person. You have to focus on Indian philosophy, Chinese philosophy, and Arab philosophy, all this, and science, modern science. All this has to be integrated to understand who you are or to explore your full potential. So from this standpoint, my true identity is this consciousness, which is beyond the time-space. Because it is beyond time-space, my true identity is happiness. I am happy. My nature is happiness. When you say your nature is happiness, what does it mean? The word for happiness in Sanskrit is sukham. Have you heard that word, sukham? Sukham. What does it mean? Su means plenty. Ka means space. Sukham means plenty of space. My nature is pure space. What does space mean? Space means accommodation. I can accommodate everything. I can accommodate any idea. I don't fight with anything. I accommodate everything. And hence, the greatest ideal in India is non-violence. I don't want to violate you, so that you don't violate me. I can be myself, you can be yourself. So this consciousness is such which is non-violent, which has no boundaries. And in that level, you and I are one. I have no quarrel with you. At that deep level. So if I have the memory of that deep level, the experience of that deep level of my being, I have no reason to fight with you. And then I understand, I am not in this body, I am not in this world. Actually, the world and the body is in me. See, this is a cognitive shift you experience suddenly. The world and the body is in me. Of course, the body is in the world is in me, world is in time space. World is nothing but a disturbance in time space. When you know this, you become fearless. That's why there is a phrase in Advaita Vedanta, Ashariram Sharireshu. Ashariram Sharireshu. In this embodiment, Shariram in this body, I remain unbounded by the body. The body doesn't bind me. Let me give an example for that. The body doesn't bind me. Body is only an opportunity for me to explore and express my potential. Suppose I give a sitar to Ravi Shankar, let us say. Not the modern Ravi Shankar, our old Ravi Shankar. If I give a sitar to Ravi Shankar, what will he do? He will grab it and run his fingers on the strings, and he will invoke mellifluous music out of that, isn't it? Isn't it? There the body is an opportunity. That sitar instrument is an opportunity. If I give you a sitar, what will you do? You will hurt your fingers, that's it. That's it. It doesn't help you. So if you can establish the right relationship with the body, as somebody that gave me a liver and a place to stand, I can lift the whole world. But if you are a liver, you cannot lift the whole world. You need a place to stand. Then use the liver. Then you can lift the whole world. Similarly, this body is a liver for me. If I have a place to stand, then I can use this body. The body is an opportunity. So I am not trapped in this body because the body is in me. The body is in the world is in me, in that consciousness. Therefore, I can use this body in interaction with the world to explore and express my potential. Then from that standpoint, you love the body. You love the world. Because you see opportunities. Without the world, without the body, you will not be able to explore and express. So, from this spiritual consciousness standpoint, the body and the world is in me. And then I have the freedom to reinvent myself continuously. Reinvent myself. I can reinvent my body. I can recreate myself continuously. But if I'm just the body, I cannot do anything about myself. But if I'm beyond the body, beyond the world, these two are in me, then I have the freedom. So consciousness is free. It is not bound by anything because there are no boundaries in it. So from this standpoint, you have the ability and the freedom and the leisure and the energy to recreate yourself continuously. You become very flexible. You become very flowing. Nothing can bind you. You don't feel you are bound by it. So consciousness is free. Consciousness is health. Consciousness is love. Consciousness is happiness. That's why I called it the blissful self. The blissful self, which is your real nature. And that real nature is to be understood. How do we understand? Not by objective experiments. Objective experiments, you may come to know the world partially, All the objective knowledge is partial and provisional anyway. It can be constantly changing and updating because you are studying a constantly changing world. So the old knowledge is worthless. It is trash. Because by the time, it's like studying in the law college. By the time you come out, the laws all change. Isn't it? They are worthless. They are useless. Similarly, knowledge of medicine. By the time you come out, all the things you have studied is useless. Because now AI and robots and they come then do all the work. You have to be a mechanic now these days to be a good doctor. To be a good doctor, you should know how to press the buttons. Therefore, the knowledge of the world, because it's constantly changing, it is worthless. That knowledge is worthless. What you need an ability to spontaneously respond. I'm not saying, of course, your knowledge of the world may be useful in a very fixed environment. But the thing is, things are not the same. When you married, both of you understood each other very well. Oh, I am happy with this girl, the girl is happy with me, and that will be all holy donkey afterwards, isn't it? After 3 days of marriage, you find, my God, this girl is not the way I thought she was, or this boy is not the way I thought he was. Things are all changing. So your old knowledge is useless here. So we must have an ability to respond to the situation spontaneously, not from memory, but from some other source. And things are fast changing now. So that other source is the source consciousness. So if you have the ability to abide in consciousness, then you will be able to creatively respond to the ever-changing situations that is constantly dancing around you. Similarly, the body also is constantly changing. We must have a strategy to respond to this body. Your emotions are constantly changing. Your concepts are constantly changing. Your job is constantly changing. They say in 10 years' time, there will be 60% of the person jobs will not be available. And we must have the ability to redesign ourselves continuously, to learn new jobs, new skills. If that's not there, you will be unemployed. You will become useless. 60% of the jobs now will not be there. So 60% of the skills that you have developed will not be useful there. So this ability to respond to this ever-changing situations comes from your consciousness, not from your memory or the skills that you have learned. Thus we can be happy people. That is why I titled this talk as the blissful self. Not the depressed self, not the alienated self, not the masked self. Of course, these masks are necessary. From the Vedantic standpoint, your whole body is a mask. The brain is a mask. There are many kinds of masks. The whole infrastructure you have created, the time, space, all these are masks for consciousness. These masks are necessary for consciousness to express its infinite potential in manifold ways. The ability to create a new mask, to wear it, to don it and doff it as situations arise. Where you have to be humble, you can be humble. Where you have to be arrogant, you can be arrogant. Where you can be angry, you have to be angry, you can be angry. Where you have to be nice, you can be nice. All these abilities, this variety of skill sets can be yours, provided you you experience this cognitive shift from the body I am attitude to I have a body attitude. That's the cognitive shift I'm talking about. Instead of saying I am the body, you say I have a body. Attitude is to be created. When you have that attitude, then the body is a pressure chamber. Otherwise, it's a painful prison house for us. Because you think you are in the body. But the Vedanta says body is in you. You have a body, you are not the body. You have a mind, you are not the mind. Just as something like saying, I have a buffalo, but I'm not the buffalo. Is it not? I have a house, I am not the house. I have a donkey, I am not the donkey. I have a computer, I am not the computer. I have a car, I am not the car. This is called Drik Drishya Viveka in Vedanta. An ability to understand yourself subjectively vis-a-vis the objective world. Of course, modern psychology talks about individuation. As a child, you did not have the ability to separate you from your environment. And slowly as you grow up, you are able to separate you from your environment, you from your father, you from your mother, you from your sister, and design strategies to relate with them so that you can maximize your happiness. You slowly develop that capacity. But now, as you become wiser, we also need this ability to understand that my essential self is separate from the body, separate from the mind, separate from my knowledge, separate from my ignorance, separate from the world, my essential self. In fact, the whole infrastructure is in me. I am not in them. And the classical example given is the pot and the pot space. You say there is space in the pot. Don't you say that? Just imagine. You have to do some imagination. Imagine a pot. Have you imagined it? Have you imagined the pot? Now there is space in the pot, isn't it? There is space outside. And the pot says, this is my space. And two pots are fighting. That is your space, this is my space. China and India is fighting like that. This is my little space, this is that little space. The pot says, this is my space. And the space says, my God, little potty, you are in me. Is it not? The pot is in space. Space is not in pot. But from the pot standpoint, this little space is its space. But that's not the truth. The truth is that the pot is in space. You can move the pot in space. Actually, every molecule of the pot is space. Every molecule is made up of atoms. Atoms is nothing but 99.99% is space, isn't it? Actually, the whole universe is a modified space. And I go a little further. The whole space is a modified consciousness. And that consciousness, when I say modified, it doesn't really change. It doesn't really change. It is only an appearance. It is only an appearance. It's a way of looking at that. It's a way of interpreting. It's a linguistic problem, a linguistic convention. Actually, there is only consciousness. And hence the Vedanta says, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. All this is a play of consciousness. Or Chidvilasam, a play of consciousness. A play of bliss. A play of joy. And in joy, you can play anything. Isn't it? Amitabh Bachchan, in his playfulness, he becomes a coolie in the movie, isn't it? A coolie. bend and then weight on his both hands and his shoulder, on his head, and you put one more bag on his top, and when you look at that Amitabh Bachchan, you feel so miserable, isn't it? You start crying, and you pay for that also. And while Amitabh Bachchan is doing this, suffering like that, his bank balance is going up. His bank balance is going up. So similarly, consciousness of the freedom and the leisure and the inner richness to play any role. It can play the role of a coolie, it can play the role of a king, it can play any role. This is the true meaning of freedom. This is the true meaning of happiness. This is the true meaning of love. So that is your self. Own it up. Own it up. Don't shy away from that. Reflect a little bit. An unanalyzed life is not worth living. So analyze it, realize your true nature, and then the rest will be, I don't say history, the rest will be mystery. You really transform your life. So that's the blissful self we are talking about. Thank you very much. Hari Om, I have taken a lot of time of yours, and thank you very much. If you have some questions or some responses, yes. Okay, Hari, yes.
Thank you, Swamiji, for the blissful lecture indeed. If there are any questions, you may please either raise your hands, unmute yourself and speak, or you can also type it in the chat box. Any questions?
When you are happy, there will be no question, isn't it? There cannot be any question. What question is when you are unhappy? The question answer game is between unhappy people. When you're happy, you just smile. That is the only question, that is the only answer.
That is true. I don't have any questions.
You don't have any.
I don't.
You don't have any question.
Yes.
Gaurav, you have any question?
So,
If you have any question, we will close it. Sangeeta, maybe you can say something to conclude.
any questions from anyone? Saurabh sir, you have any questions?
Swamiji, just not a question per se, but just some of the thoughts I would like to ask you for the further clarification. That in the language of Vedanta, first of all, Swamiji, Hari Om for that. And the question is that then we have the blissful self on the one hand, which the Advaita talks of as Atman. But on the other hand, Advaita also Advaita criticized the karma, that karma can never give us the freedom. It is only through the jnana we can get the freedom. While most of our activities are like geared towards the karma, that we become skillful in karma. So while the person will become the blissful, he become like less and less involved with the karma. So this is actually the dichotomy between the karma and the jnana. Basically, if we become the blissful, if we more aligned to ourselves, then we, like a Raman Maharshi, that we become less involved with the karma. Or is there so what is the role of the karma? While in the Advaita, karma is not got so much of importance. It is just only for the cleaning up the mental instrument. So what will be your...
Advaita is not opposed to karma. Advaita is only opposed to karma where you expect happiness. If karma's motivation is for happiness, then Advaita says you will never be happy through karma. Because karma, you can only create object of comforts, which we need. We need some comforts, a comfortable house or a comfortable environment. Through work, you can create that. But comfortably, you will be unhappy. Comfort doesn't guarantee happiness. You can put one more pillow here, one little bit of music there, maybe one more person to serve you. So through karma, you can create comfort, which is necessary. Advaita says, through karma, you must be able to, your motive should be to express your happiness, your love. That is should be what should be the motive. So karma is very important to explore and express your potential, the potential for happiness. Actually, a happy person alone can be really active in this world. An unhappy person is always reactive, creating more unhappiness. So discover your happiness, your natural happiness, and use your desire, your activities as a means of expressing your happiness, not expecting happiness. So from my understanding is, only a happy person can be really active. He uses desire not to aggrandize, but to share. Share what he is. Share his God-given bliss and joy and intelligence to create common good, to create communities, common good, and maintain this ecological system and all that. So desire, karma is very important. And sometimes the Advaita criticizes ritualistic karma. Too much ritual is not necessary, what Advaita says. Too much ritual. Some ritual is necessary. Actually, whole life is a ritual only. Now, this is a ritual. You are sitting there, I am sitting here, we are talking and all that. So rituals are there. The whole life is a ritual. But in addition to some artificial rituals are not necessary. So karma is very important. But at this point, karma is binding because they're expecting something, they're expecting happiness, which will never come. Because that's a false expectation. That's it.
Swamiji, there are two questions in the chat box. One is by Dr. Shankar Rajaraman and the other is by Mr. Jamil Ahmed. Sir, would you like to speak up your question or should I read it from the chat box? Mr. Ahmed, would you like to speak up your own question or should I?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Swamiji, for such a wonderful lecture over this issue. Actually, I was thinking about this Advaita philosophy, which basically considers the mind-body as a whole, and which is basically the basis for a blissful self.
Yes.
But when we see the sad or demonic self of a person in terms of this philosophy, is there a divide between the soul and the body? And how can be Pratyabjana related to these two forms of the human life? A good self, a happy self, and a bad self, and a demonic self.
There is no demonic self and good self. There are demonic expressions.
Yeah.
Desires. When you entertain a desire to aggrandize, control the other, then desires are called demonic desires. And that comes from your limited sense of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you feel you are entrapped self. And from that, there is called dukkha. Dukkha means that limited self. As a result of that, you want to either control the other or dominate the other, and you won't give the freedom to the other to be themselves. That is a demonic attitude. That comes from this limited self, limited understanding about yourself. And then also you feel good. Some people you are nice, some people you are bad. All this comes from the limited self. Expand yourself. Then there is no category called demonic or divine or anything. These are all human constructs.
Okay, sir.
From a limited self.
Swamiji,
Okay, thank you, sir.
Dr. Shankar sir had a question. I would read out the question to you. The question is, Pranam Swamiji, what would be the difference between the self in Advaita Vedanta and the Parma of Pratyabhijna Darshan?
Pratyabhijna, I think as far as I understand, they are the same. Pratyabhijna, self-Pratyabhijna means second witness is memory. Pratyabhijna is the knowledge that I am the one who experiences all these changing things. Pratyabhijna focus your attention on the self, which is going through this continuous experience. You know, I was sleeping, then I dreamt, then I'm talking to you now. I was old, I am young, I am sick, I am healthy, I am dying, all this. In all these changing experiences, what is fundamentally changeless is I. That knowledge is called Pratyabhijna. And the same thing Advaita says. The only difference is, in Pratyabhijna, they call it Shiva. In Advaita, we call it Brahman. Another difference is, in Pratyabhijna philosophy or Kashmira Shaivism, the world is real. Where in Advaita, the world is changing. Since the world is continuously changing, it cannot be called real, nor can it be called unreal. It falls into a third category, called neither real or unreal, but it's called mithya. That's only different. Then Pratyabhijna compromises a little bit, giving some reality to the world, where Advaita tells the truth. The world is continuously changing, and it's only an appearance in consciousness. Otherwise, both are the same thing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Swamiji, we
Okay,
have
thank you very much. Any other question?
Swamiji, one more question in the chat box. It is by Amruta Valli. She says, Namaskaram, the word and the body is in me, then why won't it go away? How do I stop the play?
The world and what is the question? World?
The world and the body is in me, then why won't it go away? How do I stop the play?
Why should it go away? Why do you stop the play? Nobody wants to stop the play. Why do you stop the play? Are you bored with it or what? That question doesn't make any sense to me. Why should the world go away? Why should you, a football player, football and football ground, why should it go away? If you are a good student, why should the examination should not be there? If you have not studied, I can understand. Examination is very bad. But if you studied very, very well, why should the examination not be there? If you are a good sitar player, why should there not be a sitar? Sitar is an opportunity for you, isn't it? The world and body is an opportunity for you to explore and express your potential, which is your Atman, your consciousness, which is full of joy and bliss and health and whatnot. So that's how we will.
I would like to invite Professor Sangeeta Menon to say some few words.
Okay.
Pranam Swamiji for a very moving lecture, and I think a transforming lecture. We started this lecture series in a slight negative note because we thought we all are locked down. And I think in the beginning itself in your lecture, perhaps in a little humorous manner, you said, don't make such a small thing a big thing, because you already are locked down in your body, in your perception, in your world. So sometimes I think when we universalize our little experiences, we ourselves expand, our self expands. And I think that was the whole idea of this lecture series, to see that yourself truly is not locked down, but what is locked down is your thinking, is your belief. So if our thinking and belief changes, then you experience yourself as something different. So thank you so much for giving us that perspective. And that is what we badly wanted as part of this lecture series, which is ending today. And we are very grateful to you for sparing your time and being so patient to explain to us in a very simple manner which we all could relate. And this series is also ending today. To all of you there out who attended, I saw I think about 45 people attended today. I saw that number only on the first day, I think when I gave the lecture. In between it varied. So it was good to see perhaps those number who were there on the first day, on the last day as well. So we hope to come back to you with other courses and other co-reflections. So we thank all of you. Niharika, it's up to you now for the
Thank
last
you.
words.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Niharika.
Swami. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sangeeta ma'am, for the wonderful lecture series. We all learned something with each lecture. And thank you for ending on such a blissful note. I think many of my my thoughts have changed with the lecture. So I hope that was the experience for all of us here. So I thank everyone to join, and on behalf of our team and on behalf of NIAS CSP, we thank you all for your participation. Thank you, Swamiji, once more.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, Sangeeta
Thank
ma'am.
you, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.